Yeah, so we have three distinguished panelists today. We have Michelle, John, and Christopher. So Michelle, can you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for your time this morning. My name is Michelle Gagnon. I'm the Talent Acquisition Manager for the Department of Administration at the state of Rhode Island. And welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Michelle. John?
Good morning, John Conforti. I'm the Chief Financial Officer with Ocean State Job Lot. And pleased to be here today.
Thank you, John. Chris?
Morning, all. Thanks so much for joining. It wouldn't be a global pandemic Zoom meeting without a little technical difficulty, but as with everything during the last 6 months, we'll get through it. I'm a private wealth advisor at Goldman Sachs. Just excited to discuss with you all, network with you all, and hopefully make this as useful as possible for you.
Thank you, everyone. So I think we have the poll result. Most, I think 37% of students are freshmen, 4% are sophomore, 51% are junior. Yeah, this is the biggest group, and 8% are senior. I guess they will be in the job market very soon. I guess this will be very important for them, also for junior, for those who still have a couple of years before getting to the job market. So we will start with some questions. Just maybe for pedagogical purpose, we will start, we have 3 questions. We'll start with the first one. What should be negotiated and what should not, if anything? So can you go ahead, Chris?
Yeah, I can take the first one. It's
Okay.
Michelle. So when you say negotiating, when I think about negotiating, what we should and shouldn't do, is the first thing we talk about is compensation, right? So, but we want to look at the whole package before you do make a final decision. Those negotiation conversations should be leading up to when an offer comes out from a company. So you should have those conversations prior to an offer. So there's no surprises at the end. You certainly always have room for negotiation. I think those things, when I think about what not to negotiate, I think those conversations of what you need to accept an offer should be in conversation leading up to the offer. Negotiate vacation time. You just don't want to surprise a company or maybe wait till the end to ask for something. I think those conversations should be ongoing with the recruiter. And I can ask John and Chris to chime in here to see if there's anything I'm missing, but that's my opinion in negotiations.
Thank you, Michelle.
Chris, you want to take it?
I'm going to yield to yours and Michelle's expertise first, and I'll fill in the gaps, if any.
Yeah, it's so much of a facts and circumstances situation when it's so important for you to use your your good judgment, and when you're in interviews negotiating, sometimes good judgment takes a little experience, in terms of an interview process. And if you wouldn't mind, is it okay if I just tell a little personal story of my kind of ups and downs with salary and getting started?
Yeah.
Try to keep this under 2.5 hours, okay? I'll try to just keep this story. Thank you, Michelle. I can't see many people, but I can see you, so thanks for laughing. So again, honored to be presenting to everyone here today. Attended URI back in, graduated in 77. And my goal was always, to be a CPA. Didn't know what it stood for, but that was my goal. And I don't know if it was in a year before, 1976, in my junior year, I interviewed on campus with this national accounting firm. It was a great interview, great conversation. And after an hour, he looked at my transcript and saw a 3.1 GPA and basically said, John, good luck, but we only hire 3.5 and above. And so there goes my chance to work with a national accounting firm with a starting pay at that time that was probably between $15,000 and $16,000 a year. So my confidence took a big hit that day. But one of my favorite sayings is no pain, no gain. And I was determined to be a CPA, work in public accounting. I sent out about 100 resumes to most local Rhode Island CPA firms. And on my second interview, it was a mid-sized firm that was located in Providence. I didn't get much feedback from sending out those hundreds, but I did have this second interview. I felt it was a great interview, great conversation. And, all I remember is after about an hour, the partner in charge looked at me and said, John, how much do you think you're worth, starting out? And so I said, well, I don't know how many, I'm not sure how many of you ever heard of the, of this pendulum theory, because in my mind I had, 15, 16,000 with the national accounting firm and had been, rejected from that. And so I felt like I went from one extreme to another, and when you reach too far on one side, you just shift back too far on the other side. So I said something like, I hope to make at least $7,000 a year. And he said, John, I my secretary makes more than that, and I need someone who is more confident in themselves, and didn't get that job. And I came away just, that was the first little inkling of understanding the importance of being comfortable to talk about salary, no matter where you are in that interview process. The third interview was this regional firm in Middletown. Another great interview, great conversation, and at some point he asked me about salary expectations, and I told him experiences, and I truly believe this, that experience was more important than a starting pay. And he didn't push that response, but he did explain that, if I worked hard and worked efficiently and had clients that didn't mind paying my bill, my pay would be increased, my billing rate would be increased, but I would earn more over time. And he offered me $175 a week, $9,000 a year. I took it, and 2 years later, at that same accounting firm, I was handed the Ocean State job lot account after they just had opened their second store. So 8 years later, or 8 years into the job, I became a partner in the firm. And 10 years later, or 10 years from graduating, I left to join Job Lot as we were opening our 11th store. So I think, the point is that when you are out there, you want to articulate your passion to add value to whoever is lucky enough to have you work for them. I was very naive when it came to talking about salary. So as we get deeper into a number of good topics here, I think it's just so important to do your research and networking and really get comfortable with it when it comes up in an interview or a job offer. That's my story. Now we can move on to the next question, or feel free to please feel free to add in. Michelle or Chris.
Absolutely, John. Thank you so much for sharing that story. There were so many good points there that I think, are great takeaways. Like you said, you were passionate, but in this day and age, when I think about the pandemic, I think going into 2021, we don't know what it's going to look like. And companies have, rescinded offers, and we're in a different economy, and hopefully that changes soon. But let's say it doesn't, right? So you're going into an offer and you're so grateful to get that offer. But you want to remember, like you said, your value, and you don't want to sell yourself short because it's a job, right? So when you're negotiating, you want to know the range going in. You want to make sure you're comfortable with that. But you also want to continue through that process that your value, is going to bring a lot to the organization. So you don't want to sell yourself short at negotiating. And someone I just mentored was looking at an offer, and I'll just share this with you. And it was about $8,000 less than what they were looking for. And they were like, but what if I don't get another offer? So they were in that panic mode because it's especially a pandemic. And I said, think about how long it's going to take you to get that $8,000 back. If you can get it up front or close to it, it might be 2 years before companies, turn around and start doing bonuses depending on the economy. I said, just think about how long it's going to take you to get that $8,000. So if you can get it up front, awesome, right? So he went back, and I said, but you really need to sell it on why, you're worth that. And I think having a couple interviews that you don't get the offer or it's highly competitive. Yeah, John, great to your story is that you think you get knocked down, right? Your self-esteem is a little bruised, right? Your ego's a little bruised, and you don't want to be in a situation where you're just taking the job lower than the salary that you really feel your value's at. So I think those points were fantastic, John. They're so important. I think, as you go through the process of interviewing and have that conversation, you really want to continue your value of what you can bring to that organization. I know for a fact, I came out of wealth management before I went into government, that I always had a negotiation piece, right? I always had that range. And there were a lot of times, especially in the last 5 years, that I had to not argue with comp, but really come with a business plan of why you need to give me this sign-on, a 6-month review, an extra week of vacation, because comp, I'm working with comp and they're all about the numbers. But if I knew the value of this person was needed at the organization and we really couldn't do without, and I had such, a passion to get great talent into the firm, another $10,000 for a firm of the size that I used to work for is nothing. And if I can get a business case to compensation, I would say 99% of the time would get what I needed. But you have to have that passion. Like you said, John, you're coming out of college. You don't have a ton of business experience. You might have book experience, but you really want to sell to the organization of where you can be in 6 months, where you want to be in 2 years, where you want to be in 5 years, and align it with the company's value, their core values, their mission. Those are all things you do on your research. And if you go in armed with those things and can really articulate that, I can guarantee you get close, if not, everything you want up front. Christopher, do you agree?
I agree with a lot of that. I mean, I think to everybody on here, I'm going to put a little bit into context. Michelle and John are experts on this. They live and breathe this. I am one human being that had to do this for his career. So they probably are drawing on experiences of hundreds of times. I'm drawing on experiences of, 6 times. But so I would say when they're speaking, feverishly write notes. When I'm speaking, listen, hopefully it's good. But I want to put this in context. A very important thing for college students and recent graduates is knowing when it actually is a negotiation. I work at Goldman Sachs. We're privileged to have yearly analyst classes of very qualified, successful, impressive young students from all walks of life, all universities. And you don't have a negotiation point, right? I mean, we have a starting salary for our analysts. That's great. That changes for every company you go to. But like Michelle said, and what John said, the most important thing is do your research. It's so easy to do research. Control what you could control. You should be going into the interview well-armed, well-educated on the job, well-educated on the role. And honestly, I mean, you should be able to put it this way. If it's a smaller regional firm versus a multinational financial firm, you're probably going to have a little more negotiation on one and less on the other. And as you get older, as you get more experience, as your jobs turn into a CFO role or a managing director role or what have you, you're going to have more leverage in this. But in the beginning, the leverage is with the company. And it's your job to prove to them that you're unique, you're going to work harder than the person next to you. And at the end of the day, you're actually someone they want to work with for 70 hours a week. I'm talking about finance, but that kind of goes everywhere. So hopefully that kind of put into context where we sit.
Thank you, Chris. I think we will move to the next question. Which considerations should be accounted for when starting salary negotiation?
I'll take that one. Thank you, Christopher, for mentioning that. And like you said, being armed and really knowing about the role that you're applying to or interviewing for is key. Like you mentioned, Chris, that there's some major firms that have, whether they have future leaders programs or an analyst role or that type of thing, they have a set salary. And that conversation should be with the recruiter right off the bat, especially if you're coming in and there's no room for negotiation. A good recruiter will tell you up front that this is our program, this is what it pays. And then you have to really decide, if the role itself is what you're looking for. I think negotiations really do come at the offer stage, but like I mentioned before, because I've seen it on all different fronts, a company doesn't want to be blindsided when the role pays $50,000 and then you come back and ask for 80. Okay. I've seen that multiple times, and another firm's offering me 80 and all different excuses. But at the end of the day, if you're competing against someone, and there's always 2 or 3 finalists, you want to make sure you have those conversations with your recruiting firm. By the time you get to the hiring managers, those conversations should be with HR, because they're really the ones that handle that. So, and it's all the way you ask. I think being very transparent, after learning about the role, learning about, your career, if it aligns with your career path and you're excited about this, then it's totally acceptable to say, is there a range? Is there a starting salary? Is that negotiable? Those are generalized questions. When you get to negotiations, I would say you really want to stay within the range that you discussed. You don't want to blindside a company at the end when they're excited about you, and then you come back and ask for, $50,000 and $20,000 more. And I have seen it, and I have seen people not get offers because of it many times. So that's something to think about when you are negotiating. You have to also research the role that you are applying for, meaning if Goldman Sachs is paying $70,000 and JP Morgan's paying, $70,000, and then you're interviewing with Fidelity and you're asking for 90, you have to also be realistic within the market that you're interviewing in. And that all comes back to the research piece. You should be completely armed going into an interview. Like you said, Christopher, everything's online now. You can look at the core values. You can look at pretty much everything about an organization. So not being prepared is really not acceptable going into an interview. So you can have all those things, but negotiating, you can do that along the way with your recruiter, but you just want to make sure you're realistic within the type of role that you're interviewing for, but you also want to be realistic within the range you spoke about. Because it really does make a difference at the end where I'm looking at 2 to 3 finalists that I could put an offer out to anybody of those 3, and one comes back and then says, I want 90,000. You know, you feel as a company that you've put a lot of time and effort to get to that final interview, and then you've been really transparent, and then you feel like, oh, maybe this is not a fit. So those are things that I've learned in the past, being on the other side, that I think really make a difference when you have that little wiggle room at the end of maybe 5 to 10,000 to start off, if you have that ability within the firm.
Yeah, that's great, Michelle. And you know, I just to touch on the balance between a starting pay, especially when you're coming out of college, and where experience is so important. You know, you may have a lot of confidence going in because it's your personality type and academically performed, but there is a learning curve in those first year or two to really gain confidence at a whole other level in terms of the work environment, the interaction you would have with teams. And you know, we touched on career path and your dreams and aspirations and your goals. And sometimes there's this balance between a pay that may be barely enough to cover the auto loan and the college loan, and oh, I didn't want to live at home, but I've got to live at home, and you know, all these factors go into it. You know, into your own personal decision, but as important as that starting pay is, and the topics we'll talk about to get you as comfortable as you can to talk about money and benefits, the career path and that long-term goal that you have in the company is such an important part to the job also. You know, when you do your research. So.
Yeah, thank you, John. Chris, do you have anything to add?
I think that's really well covered, as to be expected from 2 experts in the field. I think we'll keep the dialogue rolling on the next question.
Yeah, great. So let's move to the next question. So, how to achieve the best outcome?
I mean, I think I can speak to me here, because just walking through a couple situations that turned out well. You know, I go back to knowing when it is a negotiation. In the beginning, it's a lot less. Later on in your careers, it's all a negotiation. So I think, and to give you some context here, you know, I started out, you know, you negotiate every salary, offers. I've been at 4 other firms, so there's always been a point of negotiation. But now, and I think it's kind of ironic that I'm on this panel, I'm formulaically paid off the revenue I generate from our clients. So I have 0 negotiation with how I get paid today, but that's fine. But I mean, I would give you all, just remember, I think John said it really well, confidence in yourself. I think if you have that, it comes through on the negotiation side when you get there. And it's really important. Michelle touched on this, and I think this is something that doesn't get spoken about that much in a college university setting. There are 2 parties involved, in the hiring manager, right? And the team that you're actually going to be working with, right? And that's often the case. It's not every case, but it's important to know the dynamic there. And if the team wants you, it's not coming out of the team's pocket. It's coming out of the company's pocket. Like Michelle said, that extra $5,000 it's nothing to these large companies. But for that hiring manager who has a budget, that's the person that you really need to talk to about salary, benefits, and negotiate. The team that you're looking to interview with and sit with and, you know, be a part of and grow with, they don't usually have that much to say about salary. I mean, they just don't. So I want to make sure that everybody on this call knows, you know, John and Michelle are giving you great advice about, you know, potentially negotiating and knowing your worth. Make sure you're doing it with the right person. And that person is the, you know, human capital management, human resources, recruiter person, not, hey, would you like to join our team at, you know, Ocean State Job Lot or Goldman Sachs or, you know, the Rhode Island government, right? There's a dynamic there that needs to be kind of highlighted so you know you're actually negotiating with the right person. Sorry, that doesn't really answer that question, but
no,
that question
it is really interesting what you are saying. Maybe just to add something to the question, when you really talk about salary, it's not just what you are, because you say in your case that you have your salary value, it depends on how much you are bringing in, right? So in the finance industry, we know that sometimes bonuses may be even larger than the base salary. So when you talk about the best outcome, it can be maybe the trade-off between how fixed you have, what is the base salary, and all those additional compensation, right? So can you elaborate a little bit more about the whole package, how you can negotiate, maybe take less salary and more bonuses and stuff like that?
So this is a good example of when a large company like Goldman Sachs offers you a job, it's even across everybody. You know, if you're an advisor at Goldman Sachs Private Wealth, you're working with ultra high net worth families and institutions. You're managing the assets in a very thoughtful way. In managing those assets, it creates revenue for the firm. You, as their advisor and quarterback for the relationship to the broader firm, are entitled to a percentage of that compensation, or that revenue, I should say. So it's not worth your time for me to get into the esoteric details of our bonus structure, but the bottom line is keep your current clients, do a really good job for your clients, and bring in new ones. That's the way I optimize and get to the best outcome, right? It's very straightforward. It's making sure they're in the right investments to accomplish what they want to accomplish, and keeping those relationships at the firm and bringing on new ones. It's pretty easy for me to say that because of the formulaic compensation.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
And I'll quarterback on that too. I mean, when you join a firm and you're talking about benefits, we call it the total package, right? So if someone has a company like Fidelity, I'll just use because I worked for them for a long time, they have an amazing benefit package, right? So, and they do put a price on that. And they'll talk about the cost of the total benefit package. You know, school loan reimbursement, 7% match, you know, what am I looking at for annual bonuses? A lot of companies do pay for performance. So you do control that. If you work well with your manager, you do control how much you make within that bonus, and that's pay for performance. So if you're happy, you know, with your salary, that's great. But if you have that opportunity to make more and you can control that, that's fantastic, because the harder you work, the more you work for the firm, hit your goals. You'll be able to be compensated maybe on a quarterly basis. Some companies are annual. So those things you can control. And like Chris said, in the financial world, the more assets you bring in, the more money you make. You know, you want to bring in new money and retain your old clients. So that's it. You're in sales. Let's say someone's in sales. They can really make a lot of money. Basically, you know, bringing clients and keeping those relationships. But it all depends on the avenue you choose for a career. But when you're looking at a total package, you might have a $60,000 base, but your benefit package is phenomenal. The company sees that maybe as another 40,000 for the year. So when you get a statement saying your total rewards package for the year says 102, and you're like, wait, I didn't make 102. You'll see the breakdown of what it costs a company to have you as an employee. And they look at that. So, I mean, when you're negotiating the best outcome, you know, sometimes you can't negotiate a salary, and it's that, but some things might be important to you, saying, you know, may I have a possible 6-month review? A lot of companies, especially smaller firms, will say absolutely. We'll talk about that from a compensation standpoint, and do a 6-month review, where other firms, you know, you have to wait a year. Vacation, sometimes you can negotiate that extra week of vacation. It might not seem like money in your pocket, but I also believe in work-life balance. So those are things that you want to look at your total package for a company when you get an offer. And another thing I'm going to throw in is, I know it's exciting to get an offer on the table. You're thrilled, you're at your target company, but you really want to look at that offer line by line. So I always recommend, and most recruiters would be surprised if you didn't say this, is could I have 24 hours to review? I'm thrilled. I'm absolutely thrilled to join the firm. This is where I want to be, but I want to, you know, run it by my spouse. I really want to make sure everything's in line before I sign the offer letter. Would be respectful to give me 24 hours, and every recruiter is expecting that. It's when you ask for 2 weeks, then the red flag goes up. So that means there's another offer on the table, but that's another question. But John, do you have anything else to add to that regarding like the total package outcomes?
Yeah, I mean, I think you really hit on a very good point, where total package and understanding of that, especially when you're out there and you're evaluating, you know, different companies and doing your research and kind of drawing the vertical lines and trying to compare one company to another. Doing it on a total package in today's world is extremely a smart approach to it. And again, depending on personal circumstances, something like health insurance may be a lot more important to a particular person than it is to another person. And health plans, it kind of just is something that's maybe taken for granted, but there could be huge deviations among companies, and not just the copay of a premium, but the deductibles and all that could be taken into account. In our HR area, they have been really stressing total compensation. We're in the retail industry. In the stores, it's not considered a well-paying industry. Over the years, I will tell you that there's been a significant change in that, and even rank and file associates are paid much better than it used to be. But it's difficult, and it isn't until in terms of a professional career that it isn't until you get into different management slots that the pay becomes full-time with exempt benefits and all that good stuff. In the background, something as simple as an employee discount, just to mention this, is we've always said that our associates can get a 20% discount shopping in our store, but we've never quantified it. And then with COVID, we made a number of different benefit enhancements and pay enhancements to our frontline associates out there. And today, the discount all associates get is 30%. And and it's just like a line item, but what we're working on in the background, yours truly just had this idea to that whenever you're making a purchase at the store, you know, you not only would see the savings from the current purchase, you would see your cumulative savings from being part of the family here, you know, our business family. And it's all this effort to increase awareness of what that total package is. So it's a great point in terms of, you know, understanding those ancillary benefits, health being very important, but there's disability, there's life insurance, there's dental, there's a whole bunch. Michelle, you know, you touched on vacation. That's probably the most frequent asked exception to the standard policy we have here. Is there any flexibility with something like vacation pay? So so just wanted to reinforce the importance of that.
Yeah, thank you so much for all those very interesting information. We have a couple of questions from students. So I will read them and you may provide more information. So I have a question from Dominique. The question is for Michelle. So he said this, Michelle said, go for 8,000 upfront. What happens if the company tells you to pound sand?
And that could happen. And like I touched on earlier, usually you will have that conversation with your recruiter through the process. You also always want to have a really good relationship with your recruiter because, and I'm going to just throw this out there, is you might not be selected for that role, but if you impress the recruiter, he's gonna remember you for another role. So I just want to throw that in there when you're in the interview process. If they say, you know, I went to compensation and it's just not doable, and you know, this is our final offer, ultimately you've done your negotiation. They are telling you it's a final offer. And if they're telling you that, it is. And you really have to make that decision if that opportunity, benefit package, career path within that firm really makes sense to you at that point. You know, you could be disappointed, you feel you're lowballed, you went back and did the best you could in your negotiations and compensations came back and said 55,000 is it, take it or leave it. And the recruiter, you know, won't deliver it that way, but she'll say, you know, I really worked hard and this is our final offer. At the end of the day, you have to say, okay, where do I want to be in a year? Where do I want to be in 2 years? Does this company, this team, this hiring manager align with what I'm looking for to get to that next step? And if it is, I would say go for it because you know what? It's an opportunity for you to shine. And once you shine in an organization, you know, there are the opportunity, you're going to have these conversations along the way of, can I move within the firm? You know, what is my next step in a year or two from now? Where can I go from there? All those questions should be answered, obviously, by the time you get an offer. But if you feel really passionate about working for that hiring manager and being part of that team, it's definitely worth your while, especially coming out of school, to get that experience. You know, you might be able to, you know, if you move up in that company, you might gain that experience and move on to another firm, which is just fine. But you really want to evaluate everything that you are looking for in your first role and how you're going to get to that next step. And if that role is $5,000 less than you had your heart set on, and you can live on that, you have to look at the full package and the full experience of what you're looking for. And if it aligns with what you are, then I would say definitely take the experience and then move forward that way.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So there is another question from Alan. I think we touched a little bit about it, but he is asking, what is a good range to stay between when you are negotiating?
Well, it all depends on the role, and John and Christopher, you can speak on this too. It all depends on the role. I mean, you could come out as a pharmacist and, you know, it's between 80 and 100. You could come out and you want to go into sales and it's a $40,000 range. You have to really look at the range. And before you apply to a role, and sometimes it's public, the range, you want to make sure that you can live on that, or the opportunity makes sense to you. But I mean, at the end of the day, it depends on the industry you're going into. There's no set range. It depends on the position itself. But you definitely want to do your research to see what is out there, what firms are paying. If you interview at 3 different places and it's all between 40 and 50,000, and then you have, you know, bonus structure, then you know that that is the range for that industry, for that role. So it's all about doing your research on what they're paying out there in this market.
Thank you, Michelle. Anything to add?
Do your research. I mean, that's
I think
it.
that is the key.
I mean, that is the summation of negotiating salary out of college, is do your research.
Absolutely. So we move to the next question from Alan. When can you expect a bonus or a pay raise in a company? Furthermore, when is it okay to ask for a pay raise after being accepted?
John or Christopher, I mean, I can speak for myself. I've been in firms where, you know, I've gone to the table with what I've accomplished. I've accomplished my goals. You know, I smashed my goals for 3, you know, let's say 3 quarters. And, you know, I was at the highest pay range. So I'm saying to myself, oh God, I'm never going to make another penny unless I leave this job, and I don't want to leave this job. So how I approached it was, you want to go to a firm or your manager and talk about that. But you want to become armed. You want to come armed at what you've accomplished, how you got there, what you want to accomplish in the future with the firm. And you're asking, but you also want to bring the value that you've brought to the firm, because when you think about it, you're really marketing yourself, but you really want to prove your value, your worth to the firm, to that manager. But I've done it in the past, but I had to come armed. I had to come with, you know, it's all the way you asked too. And I mean, they'll go to compensation and all that stuff, but you really, really want to show and showcase the value that you have accomplished at that firm for your manager to be able to have a business case to come and get, you know, to a raise. Major companies like Goldman Sachs, and they have certain pay structures, right? They'll have like your annual bonus. Some have quarterly, some have 6. So every company is going to be different. They might say the average range is between 3 and 5%. You might have a bonus of 20% that year. When you're talking about a bonus structure, it's really upfront of what you have to accomplish for that 20%. And then you always want to ask, can I exceed that? If I do really well, can I exceed? And a lot of companies, you can exceed up to, let's say, 40%, but it all depends on the firm. It really does. Everybody has a different bonus structure, but you really want to know that going into a negotiation.
Yeah, I mean, I can just touch on that. Our structure, it's very discretionary. I kind of wish there was more structure to it, and it is one of the goals here as we continue to grow. And you know, whether I can't honestly say I kept a diary of my accomplishments and everything else, but you need to be able to discuss and articulate your own, you know, your accomplishments, and you need to be able to also deal with the opportunities and learnings. and understand, I think to Chris's maybe earlier point about talking to the right, having the understanding the right person, who am I dealing with, and is that person a decision maker in the bonus role? So I had problems with hearing the question, so I tried to just trail your answer, Michelle, but just on the audio, but I'm good.
Thanks, John.
Just real quick to add, and all of that, I hope feverish notes when John and Michelle are speaking, because that is exceptional information with this. The bottom line for any of you, I'm going to make a general statement, to negotiate a salary is performance in the first year. So we can talk about great ways of doing your research, great, finding the right person to negotiate with, all of the things. At the end of the day, the practical thing that you really need to worry about is crushing it. You need to perform in whatever role you're privileged to get after college. Make sure that you give yourself the opportunity to actually have a real conversation about rewarding your success within a firm. That's number one. Don't think about the negotiation first. Think about absolutely performance first. The compensation will come eventually. Be long-term greedy there. Don't be short-term greedy. Absolutely knock the cover off the ball. Figure out and have that open dialogue with your peers, your bosses, not the boss, maybe the mid-level VP level. You can say, hey, what else do you need me to do? Or how can I get better? And ask for feedback. Goldman we're obsessive about feedback. It's almost to the point of it's laughable how much we want feedback on everything. Do that. Okay. I mean, it's a good thing though. Like, get that information, get those data points so you can perform at a more customized level for the manager that is making that decision. That's the bottom line. That's all I'd add.
So just to follow up on Chris and the performance factor is an absolute given toward better things. Okay. But quick story from years ago is I find myself as a CPA in the public accounting firm, and had gotten married, and little baby's on the way, and I was like making $19,000 a year, and really enjoyed my job. I absolutely enjoyed my job. And I didn't have a clue what was competitive, what wasn't competitive. But now I have a little kid on the way. I'm starting to feel a little twitch in the right eye of a little stress. And I find myself looking at that time, at the paper and the help wanted ads, and I see, CPA, 4 years experience, $25,000, right? To come over. I'm making $19,000 and I'm looking at $25,000. So I cut the ad, and I'm thinking, how am I going to approach this with my boss? Because I really enjoyed, working there, and but I wanted to make more money, So again, it's all about using judgment and how you approach a situation. But I went straight on in terms of being honest, which is, I love working here. I enjoy working with you. I'm hoping my performance, I want to make money for you and the company, but this is what I have to look at. I have to look at this ad, that is saying, someone, a CPA in 4 years making 25 grand. And for me, it worked out because my pay was adjusted. Now my billing rate was also adjusted, and there was more pressure. But my pay was adjusted. So it's all about using your good judgment, creating your own batting average of success, and with that comes confidence and the judgment factor, and I hope, you know, you get to work. My entire career, I've really feel so blessed. I've been working for people that I've looked up to, which has helped me grow, and try to be the same for the people who are working, you know, with me. But facts and circumstances is really important. The research, if I hadn't looked at the paper and saw that, you know, I mean, I just would have been rolling along with the increases and the bonuses. So awareness and your approach are very important factors.
I couldn't agree more.
Thank you, John. There is a last question here from Alan. Should you accept a lower offer when the company provides a great benefit packages?
Well, I mean, that gets to this whole total package concept. You know, if that benefit package has a great health insurance and it's so important for you, that's a big factor. If there's a retirement benefit that you're really thinking about long haul and potentially being with the company for a while, you know, that's a significant factor. So these are all the things you need to kind of understand the value to you, you know, the value to you, and combine that with your passion of bringing value to the company or the organization that you, you know, are wanting to work for.
Really quick, I know we're closing up on the session here. I accepted a lower offer because the way I justified it is getting paid in experience. So I had multiple, you know, not multiple, like 10 offers on, no one has 10 offers. And if you do, great. But, you know, you have a couple offers on the table, and I chose to work with a startup hedge fund. Super exciting future. I was actually made a partner on the fund within a year, but, you know, an actual owner of the fund, because I saw that as getting paid an experience that I couldn't get elsewhere. I even look back on it, I call it like my MBA years. You know, I was not being compensated, you know, as much as I should have been monetarily, but I was absolutely, I was young. I didn't have many expenses. I was able to do it. And I was able to value that experience. And like I said before, was much more long-term greedy than short-term greedy. And that experience that I garnered from working at a hedge fund, that opened up a lot of potential down the road.
Great. Yeah, that was really very interesting session. We are almost at the end. I guess maybe student will move to a different session. Right now, I just relaunched the polling to see if there were any change during the session. Maybe just a quick roundup. Is there any specific advice you will give to the students, especially those who are hitting the job market?
There's something I'd love to touch on regarding where we are in our economy. You know, the students, especially the seniors, going into, you know, a year that, you know, we never expected, right? So there's one thing that I think is truly, truly important to ask as you're, you know, going towards negotiations, is how the company fared during the pandemic. A lot of companies have done a lot of deep cuts, unfortunately, where we are in our economy. A lot of companies are on budget constraints. And as you're talking about an offer, you want to make sure that you want to feel that stability when you're taking a role. And we're in, like I said, a whole different dynamic than we've ever seen, right? So these questions you wouldn't even have thought of, right, a year ago. But I would want to know, you know, if, you know, at the offer stage, you know, where this team fared during the pandemic, how the company fared, how the company, you know, really partnered with their employees during the pandemic, because it really is going to make a difference. We have no idea what next year is going to bring. We're all hoping for the best, but these are things you want to align yourself with. You want to align yourself with a firm that, you know, within a day, you know, was able to go virtual or tried to go virtual, but also kept up your development, also kept up your support during the pandemic. And I think it's really important taking an offer, knowing how a company, you know, really partnered with their employees during this difficult time. I think it really would make or break an offer acceptance from me.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
Anything, John?
I think Michelle handled that so well. You know, and you know, for us, it was safety before profits, and we really feel blessed to be considered an essential retailer. And I think it's a very, very good point, because it's so uncertain. And I feel, you know, if I were a CFO and of a theater chain, of a restaurant chain, of a hotel chain, of a, you know, it's just, it's unbelievable what's going on. And it's almost like surgical depression in certain areas. So being conscious of that, I think there's a resilience, and sometimes that resiliency takes a little bit of time for us to get through, to balance everything out. So you have this, you know, the more successful industries with the less successful industries, you know, in balance again. And it will take time. And I think it's a great point, you know, to just be conscious of the environment, the business environment.
Thank you, John. Please, any thoughts?
I think parting comment here. Remember, it's as much of an interview for you as it is for them. I think that sums up kind of do your research, know what you're passionate about, put yourself in the best position to succeed long term. Also, just be like, I feel bad that you're all going through this college experience right now during a global pandemic. I mean, Thursday nights at URI was the best. You should, you know, and you guys probably missed out on that. I don't know. I wish you all the best, and make sure that you're doing things right now, both personally and professionally, that you're proud of 10 years from now. So make as many friends as you can, stay in touch with everybody you can, have as much fun as you can, but make great contacts in the business world, networking, set yourself up for success later on in your life. So you look back in 10 years and say, all right, global pandemic, 2020, I actually am proud of what I could accomplish during that really hard time.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Excellent.
Great point, Chris.
Thank you, everyone, for all those advice. I hope this will really help our students. I also thank Michelle. She sent a list of some tips. They are in the slides. For students who want those slides, they can email me or Matt, and we will share those slides with you. So thank you, everyone, to attend this session. Hopefully we'll have another one next year.
Thank you, George.
See you in person next year.
Thank you.
Good luck, everybody.